So I'm going to start with technology and go back to you, Jade. How is technology enabling gender equality in Nigeria today? She's laughing because initially I was saying inequality and she said it's not inequality. How is technology enabling gender equality in Nigeria today?
Sure, thank you. And I did not go to Queen's College.
Oh.
And I think I turned out okay, so. Yeah, thanks, Aramide. I think whether we like it or not, it's undeniable that we're in a tech-driven economy, tech-driven workplace. And so from the perspective of equality, gender equality and technology, I feel it's somewhat become inevitable. It's sort of an expectation that if you are living in the 21st century and you're not influenced by technology for good or bad, you know, it's hard to get away from it. And I feel that it's bridged the divide somewhat, because technology used to be thought of as a boys thing. You know, it's boys that like tech, it's boys that like digital things. And I feel that the drive is almost uncontrollable now in terms of, well, whether you're a student, whether you're working, the expectation is that you have some level of digital literacy or some level of interaction with technology. And I'm not saying that in the terms of, oh, everyone has to be a coder or a programmer. Even basic things. So if you look at it from, say, corporate world, you need to know how to use the email. It's an expectation that even basic Excel you know how to use. So from that perspective, I would say from the workplace perspective, it's been out of anybody's hands. It's a given, it's an expectation. So from the workplace perspective, I feel that it has taken the control out of the big boys club in one way or the other, because it's opened it up. Everyone is expected to. So that's really from a workplace perspective. So even if we look at the perspective of the uneducated, so you may be illiterate, but you still, in one way, shape, or form, even if it's knowing how to use WhatsApp, as they say in Nigeria, you are tech savvy. You know, so I like to think of even the fact that mobile phones are accessible from a technology perspective. If we think of Nigeria as we're Nigerians here, you know, gone are the days that you're having to send someone. Nowadays, you're from your tailor to your butcher to, you know, to your driver, or to people who are maybe deemed, you know, not well educated, for lack of a better word. Everyone has been influenced in one way by technology. So really, I would say technology for all, and I think it's really been an advantage also in terms of trying to bridge the gender inequality, either from a global perspective, but I honestly think it's been out of everybody's hands, and I think it's been good in trying to bridge the gap from that perspective. Education-wise, as we saw during COVID, I think it generally exposed the sort of digital inequality all around, not just for females, as we saw in both developing and developed countries, because even in the US, they were having to crowdfund or donate laptops. And that's US, that's a big global player. So I think in that, it exposed the inequality generally. But then at the same time, it also showed the opportunities available, particularly on a continent such as ours, shone the light on the disparity that there is from a digital perspective and education access perspective. So yes, in summary, it's opened up for all, I feel. And I think inevitably for females, it's probably been even better in that it was driven out of the control of anyone. It was just a thing that has happened for the 21st century economy. So I think it's been good for us.
Thank you for that. I wonder if we have the SDG 5 fact sheet anywhere. Can we show that? Can we display that? Is that possible? The SDG 5 cheat sheet report. Okay, we'll probably share that after for those who are interested. but you can always look at it online. There are a few things in terms of where the world is with regards to the gender equality, and of course technology is part of that. But before I move on, I wanted to just ask, are we finding more women in STEM now? And how can we get more girls or women in STEM? Because there's still a massive gap, even though it's no longer in the hands of the boys club like you've mentioned, but there's some work to do.
So regarding STEM, and so for those of us who are maybe not so familiar with it, so that's science, technology, engineering, and math, which is an interdisciplinary method of learning and teaching, so that things are not being learnt in silos, but that there's a connectivity between those 4 pillars that make up STEM. And so for us in Nigeria, our organization is called STEM Med, so I think it's obvious what we do. So we run STEM-based programs for children from ages 3, actually, because our mindset is that if those foundational years are built, just like you're learning your ABC, you incorporating and developing STEM skills in these children, then go on really to build on those life skills that they would require. And STEM is not just the technical skills that's been developed, but as I mentioned, also the soft skills. And what are those? So critical thinking, problem solving, literacy, digital literacy, information literacy, productivity, etc. Are there enough women in there? I think we know the answer is no. Even though women represent 50% of the world's population, we're still terribly underrepresented in the STEM field. And the few of us that are in the STEM field, so I think I was reading somewhere recently that in the STEM field, only about 33% of women are in R&D, in research and development. And of those, many of them are getting paid up to about 10-15% less than their male counterparts. And then when we look at the number of females that are engaging in STEM subjects, I think about only 5% in the African continent in itself. So I think we can see that there's a huge gap there. And so what can be done about that? That's what we're trying to influence through our programs, starting them young. And being a female scientist myself, trying to, showcase myself as a role model that, you can be a girl, you can be interested in science, and you can still be funky and fashionable. You don't have to be that frumpy or quintessential geek from that perspective. So I would say the idea is really trying to promote it as a normal subject, so to speak. So one of the things that we're trying to push is to have STEM as a co-curricular subject in schools, and we've been able to do that in 3 of the schools that we've been engaging in, so that it's a part of the subjects, just like math, English, etc. are. Because as I said, it's a tech-driven economy. It's not just the knowledge anymore. So you have people who have PhD, but they can't get jobs because they don't have the workplace skills. So really, it's through more programs, and I'm not just promoting ourselves here. There are a lot of STEM programs that are going on worldwide and in Nigeria, role models, and I think showcasing successes in STEM and even education. So for example, coding is, STEM is not coding and coding is not STEM. It's just one component of it. So the education perspective is not just empowering the children, it's even the schools, the parents, to gain that understanding of what it is and the advantages of it. Does it mean you're all going to be coders? Not necessarily. The skills that you obtain through STEM are transferable across all sectors. And I think also highlighting women who are successful in STEM. For me, one of my crushes is Funke Okpeke from Main One. Telecoms, infrastructure, her company just got acquired by a US company for $320 million. And I'm sure at the time when she came up with the idea of fiber optics, deep sea, blah, 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 people probably thought she was weird and what are you talking about? So I think highlighting women that are doing things in STEM, programs, and making it available as well, not just for those who can afford it, but particularly for those who can't in the low-resourced area. So education is key. Bottom line, education of both the children as well as the different stakeholders in that ecosystem.
Thank you. And can we give STEM Mets a round of applause? I will promote if she doesn't. But I quite like what she said about that conception. We mustn't think that STEM is all about coding you could be someone who does PR for technology. And I think that the purpose of this panel is for even others who are joining from wherever to draw from some of the insights, so maybe they'll get ideas and conceptualize things for our nation. So that's great, because I didn't think of it that way. You just kind of put STEM in a box, but there's just so much, like you've mentioned. Okay, who's publishing the list of STEM people, for the world to see in Nigeria? There's just so much that one can do. Training, so there's a lot. So thank you for that change, paradigm shift for us. You mentioned critical thinking as one of the skills, and I think it's so critical given the generation and the age we're in. When you look at Twitter, for example, and sometimes you just look at Twitter is an amazing tool, but sometimes you read some interesting comments from Nigerian youth and you're like, was there any critical thinking behind this conclusion?
I just wanted to also add, I think from the developmental perspective, that has been generational. But I would also like to highlight, though, from the creativity and innovation perspective in terms of what is coming out of Africa. My hope is that, with what we've seen coming out of Africa, or Nigeria specifically, that our youth are actually moving away from that dependency on development fund through what they are building through the challenges of living in Nigeria. And I like it. I think it's an exciting time to be young and to be Nigerian or African. Examples, people, Paystack, Flutterwave, etc., where we have international companies investing in Nigerian companies. So we are exporting talent and creativity, and we are developing it also. That is attracting VC funds internationally, that is attracting, international accelerator funds, Y Combinator, Techstars in Canada. They know Africa, we have the human capital, we have the creativity and talent, despite all the challenges that we face from an infrastructure and education perspective. So imagine if things were better. But then, as they say, that necessity is the mother of all invention, or whatever. And we're seeing that, and I love it. And as I mentioned not too long ago, Main One in itself, Visa, a lot of all these big companies, particularly in fintech, are investing in Nigerian and African companies. Now, from a female perspective, I think I was reading recently a research paper that was done, that out of maybe 1,000 startups in Nigeria, I'd like to say, or Africa, I think 76% of them were male founders. And out of the 100 billion in terms of VC funding, only 3% went to female founders. And I know that a variety of female-focused VCs, as you mentioned, are coming up. So from the Alethea of 100 million to, I think Odwa Yowoni started one for pre-seed. So anything from 25,000 to 50,000. You have angel investors like Rising Tide in Lagos as well. So along the spectrum of VC funding, we're seeing women-led, and Arua Capital recently as well. Along the spectrum, we're seeing female-led VC funds, and even with some of the banks or development agencies, we're seeing that, but it's still not enough. I was reading something recently that said that with the women, they're over-mentored and underfunded. So you'll see a lot of mentorship programs, accelerator programs, etc., which is great. However, when it comes to the funding that they need, you're finding that there's still a gap. So women are maybe taking things into their own hands and trying, to have women-led funds. But I just wanted to also highlight that yes, it's great, but I feel that our young and our youth are really not moving away from that dependency on development aid, which really is more of a government perspective, and that cap in hand going to beg. I think you'll see that our youth are trying to move away from that. Yeah. So they're thinking, well, we'll build it, they'll come to us from the innovation we're creating.
Thank you for that. And whenever anybody speaks, maybe it's the way I'm wired, I like to quickly identify opportunities. I like how, and maybe thanks to the organizers, they've been able to get speakers who have been in the trenches. So there's the development aspect. Hafsa seems to know a lot about what happens, what is advertised from an advocacy standpoint versus implementation. Jade also, in terms of the venture capital ecosystem, the tech ecosystem in Nigeria, and she's right, there needs to be more women. So I feel like women who are listening, fintech, VC, explore these things. If you want to reach out to us, please do over LinkedIn, and that there's funds or there's accelerators that are trying to get women into fintech, women into blockchain. It might just be that you don't know about it. So please reach out and just be plugged into what's going on online. So much going on to get more women into some of these things.